Here's what I tell people about politics, especially when you're online doing shows. Go all in or just stay the hell away from it. If that's not your brand, there's some people like, yo, I don't even touch politics. Straight up, it's like, cool, all good. But if you're gonna get in, own it. If not, stay away.
All right, guys, we got Adam Sosnick here. I rarely see you as a guest on other shows, man, so I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, dude. Yeah, I mean, you called me, you said you're in town. I said, let's go.
I know you're always so
I am
busy.
an hour late, though, so I apologize to the guests out there.
You're good, man. Stuff happens. I heard the traffic's bad from Fort Lauderdale.
You know, you're moving, you're grooving, but I don't drive.
Really?
I don't have a car. I haven't had a car in like 13 years. It didn't happen by accident. It's strategic. And I don't drive. I rather than doing the driving and the parking and then this and the that, and I just Uber, Lyft everywhere, and I just can work, strategize, make calls.
Yeah.
And,
probably saves you a lot of time and stress, actually.
I did a whole video on, people think I'm crazy because I haven't had a car in 13 years. And the reason I actually didn't have a car was I always wanted a Mercedes-Benz. I always, like, in college, I always had a piece of car. High school, I was like always like the poor kid at the rich school because I got a sports scholarship, and all the kids in school had Range Rovers and Beamers, and I had this beat up, rusty Honda Accord. My mom's like hand me down. And I was like, I always want a Benz. And when I started making some money in my late 20s, early 30s, I was like, all right, I'm getting a Mercedes. And then I did the math, and I was like, you can buy a new one. You go, I'm very, mathematically sort of inclined. I'm like, you can do this or this. And I ended up buying a used Mercedes, actually off a buddy of mine. And 2 years to the day, the car broke down. And I was like, oh, how much is it gonna cost? Like, yeah, to fix the engine, it's gonna be like $3 grand. I'm like, $3 grand, this, all the other. And I was actually essentially like living in LA for that year. This is a random story, but because one of my best friends is that guy, Chris Humphries, that married Kim Kardashian, if you remember this, in 2010, 2011. And I got sort of catapulted into this Kardashian life because I was a groomsman in the wedding. I walked Khloe down the aisle, the whole thing. But the whole year, we're like essentially traveling with Kim. I'm staying at Kim's house. We're going to Joe Francis. You remember him from Girls Gone Wild? Staying at his house in Mexico. And I'm doing this whole thing. And I was like, yeah, I'll just deal with the car when I get back. And when I got back to Miami, because I'm born and raised in Miami, I was like, let me see how long I can go without having to get a car. Like, if I want to get a car, cool, but let's see how long I can go. Now, it's 13 years since I haven't had a car, and I just did a video because I'm up and back and forth to Valuetainment when I do my stuff with PBD. And I said, here are the 3 reasons that I don't have a car. So number 1 is I value my time. Time is money. And I did the math, which you should too, of how much I make an hour when I'm working. And I did the math, and that hour, 10 hours a week of driving, whatever it is, I can make so much more money strategizing, working, having calls, doing that versus like that. And then number 2 was the stress, like you talked about. Right. Just, dude, I'm in the back. It's kind of like, I mean, I might be in a, Jeep Cherokee in the back of an Uber, whatever it is, but I'm working, I'm reading, I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm just getting in the mode, especially when I'm in the morning on my way to the podcast. And we interview some pretty significant people on the PBD podcast, and zero stress. I come in, because most people show up, you get running late, there's traffic, there's road rage. You see these videos of people getting out of their car, getting in fights, it's crazy. And then number 3 is just save that money. It's just the cost of a new car, the cost of a used car is the highest that it's ever been on record. It's basically skyrocketed since COVID. So when you add it all up, like how much time, how much like mental health, how much money I've saved, it's literally one of the reasons that I've become a millionaire, because I just, all that money you go and pump into a car, if you can save that money, save that time, save that effort, and invest it, and then you're dealing with compound interest, and the rest is history. So you don't need a car out there, guys.
What an interesting take, because there's a lot of young kids promoting supercars these days. Of course. Fancy cars.
Yeah.
Getting
and
like
one of my good buddies owns Prestige Auto. He has the nicest cars in all of Miami, Lambos, Maseratis, all that. So it's so funny because we'll go to like dinner, or I'll see him at events, and I'm like, you're the car guy. Yeah. And I'm definitely not the car guy. But you have to be known for something. So I'm loudly and proudly not the car guy. I'm the Uber guy. By the way, Lyft and Uber, if you see this, gladly sponsor me. But to each their own, dude. Yeah.
You guys have gone a lot heavy into politics this year.
It's that season, man.
Have you always been into politics, or are you kind of just along for the ride?
It's funny because when I joined Valuetainment with Patrick Bet David, and I knew Pat since 2012 from the finance industry. So we were met in the gym, working out, just two dudes in the gym at a financial conference in Orlando. And I was like, oh, hey, what's up, man? You working out? You here for the conference? Yeah, me too. We just ended up striking a conversation and kind of hit it off. And I didn't end up joining Valuetainment until 2020. So there was 8 years of just, business, talking, keeping in touch. And he's actually the guy in like 2016, because I saw what he was doing in Valuetainment. I was like, oh, I want to do content. What's going on here? And my whole message at that point was helping millennials save that money, get smart with their money. When I was 25, I was my brokest friend. When I was 35, I was a millionaire. I was like, what did I do in that 10 years? Right. So he kind of was like, dude, just start filming. I mean, exactly what you do, Sean. And 2020, I joined Valuetainment. I mean, it was Biden, Trump, political season, COVID. It was so amplified. When we started doing political content on the Valuetainment channel, people were like, yo, what is this? Pat, you're the entrepreneur guy. You're the capitalist guy. What are you doing? So he's like, all right, we have to pivot, shift, reinvent. And we started the PBD podcast channel. And then that was just essentially half politics, half business, half current events. Yeah. And then Valuetainment is really known for entrepreneurship, capitalism, the Vault event we do. Like this year we have The Rock, Tom Brady last year. But we really got comfortable talking politics. So for me, I've always been aware of politics. Some of my friends are super involved, especially in Miami in the Democratic Party, super involved.
Destiny, right?
I mean, I met Destiny doing content. I meant like guys I grew up with in high school. They've become like a good buddy was a finance chair for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Another buddy of mine is like literally the right-hand man to Bill Clinton. Wow. But I'm also like literally like, and then I'm also real tight with the mayor of Miami who's a Republican. You're like, so I've been in this world, but it wasn't my thing. But then PBD, because of who he is and the eyeballs in him, we really got into it. And in 2016, I basically started, like a lot of Americans, really started paying attention to politics. Clinton, Trump, it was, and then 2020, it just got amplified. So here's what I tell people about politics, especially when you're online doing shows. Go all in or just stay the hell away from it. Like if you just kind of like, well, here's what I'm thinking, Donald Trump canceled. So whatever it is, I love her, Kamala, whatever it is. So if that's not your brand, there's some people like, yo, I don't even touch politics. Straight up. It's like, cool, all good. But if you're going to get in, own it. If not, stay away. So we've owned it. We talk about it. We've interviewed people on the right, people on the left, everyone, Vivek, Ron DeSantis, RFK, you name it. Still working on Trump. We're going to get him one of these days, I tell you. But yeah, I enjoy it. But I have no interest in running for any position.
No. Have these interviews shifted your stance on where you stand?
For sure.
Really?
For sure.
Like where were you before and where are you now?
It's funny. People ask me that all the time because I'm a very moderate guy. Just in general. Like I'm not like all the way this way or no way this way. I'm a moderate synergist in general. Like if there's beef between friends, I'm that guy that's like, come on guys, like let's figure this thing out. Dude, you kind of up here, bro. You really should, like that's me in general. So I've always been a moderate. But historically, traditionally, I've been sort of a conservative Democrat. So my dad was a big JFK guy. He had like a poster of JFK and MLK like in the house. And then the Clintons, like I've said, the relationship with the Clintons. And that's kind of where I grew up. And Miami is also a very purple place. It's not very political. There's Cubans. They came. They escaped communism, refugees, but it's also capitalism. Like it's not as contentious as if you go to California. I mean, it's like super hardcore. Even New York, Brooklyn, super hardcore. But Miami's very homogenous.
I thought Miami was red, but that's interesting.
But things have shifted. Great point, Sean. So, what has basically transpired over the last 5-10 years, especially since Biden came into the office and identity politics formed, and even previously Trump. And if Trump, you're either with Trump or against Trump. There was no middle ground. There's no like, hey, how do you feel about Trump? It's not like, you could go either way on him. He's fine. It's like, yo, I love that guy. I hate that guy. So, for sure, being around Pat, for sure, being around these like-minded individuals, I don't think my political ideology has changed. I think the Democrats have legitimately gotten so far left with the woke and the LGBT and the trans that there's just common people with common sense being like, Yeah, I voted for Obama. I didn't really like Trump. I didn't like the mean tweets. The policies were cool, but they've had 4 years of Biden, and obviously people have been basically sensing that he hasn't been mentally capable for a while, and then it's turned out to be true.
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of people with common sense being like, yeah, I kind of was on middle left or whatever, but nah, not anymore. So in my opinion, there's going to be a lot of people who did not vote for Trump in 2016, and maybe even the never Trumpers hated Trump in 2016 and didn't vote for Trump in 2020 that are actually going to get on the Trump train in 2024. And I'm one of those people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're publicly backing Trump.
It's not so much I love Trump, he can do no wrong. He could do a lot of wrong.
Yeah.
But the good outweighs the bad, especially if you focus squarely on policy. So one of the things I realized with Pat that I've had to do is, dude, be a little bit more rational, not as emotional. Most people vote on personality, a gut feeling, who they like, and maybe one issue, a pocketbook issue, maybe it's abortion, maybe it's the border, whatever it is. But if you look at policy by policy, in my opinion, resume to resume, Trump versus Kamala, it's not even close. So, but it all depends on what you're into, different strokes for different folks. So one of the things I always say is like, if your number one issue is the economy, right, Sean? I mean, you got to vote Trump.
Yeah.
If your number one issue is abortion, probably going to vote Kamala. If your number two issue is the border and immigration, you're probably going to vote Trump. Turns out walls aren't racist. We kind of need one. If it's, hey, let everybody in, go for it, probably vote for Kamala. So it really depends on what matters to you.
Would you interview Kamala?
I'd interview anybody.
Really?
Anybody. I've had people on my show that people told me, do not have this person on. As an example, I had the white supremacist, neo-Nazi supporting guy, Nick Fuentes.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm Jewish. so imagine that.
Yeah.
So I had people be like, don't bring him on. You're going to give him a platform. And I'm like the type of person that's like, so if I disagree with someone, even vehemently, I just refuse to speak with them. How does that help? So like even, Tucker Carlson went to fly out to Russia and interview Putin. In my opinion, it was sort of a softball interview. But then again, you're in Moscow in the Kremlin,
He wanted
looking
to
out the
home,
window. He wanted to get out of there, Putin and his rivals somehow end up flying out windows. I don't know how that happens, or poison. But I've realized, I've interviewed Alex Jones. I've interviewed people hardcore on the left, Marxists. I've interviewed conservatives. And what I've realized is that conversation, dialogue, there's usually a lot more that you can learn and you have in common with somebody, because nobody is 100% right and nobody is 0% right. There's something going on there.
Right.
So even when I had someone like Nick Fuentes, I asked him point blank, like, are you a white supremacist? No. Are you a racist? No. Do you hate Jews? No. How do you feel about Hitler? Good or bad? He's like, well, I don't. I'm like, all right, well, Hitler's good apparently. So, but being challenged and pretzeling your brain or your heart or your stomach, I actually think is a good thing for you, because it enables you to be like, damn, I didn't think of that. Well, this guy's got a point. He's definitely wrong on that, because it'll codify your own opinions and your own views, and it'll make stronger what you believe in, but it'll also make you change opinions that maybe you weren't so hardcore on. So trying to be a little bit more rational, a little bit more stoic, a little bit more understanding versus guttural and emotional and being, I hate you. And like, all right.
Right.
Okay, cool. So
I think it's important. Were you and Nick able to reach some common ground?
Yeah.
Really?
There was a few things that, look, what gets eyeballs? Extremism. Whether you're in Congress, who gets the eyeballs? It's the AOCs of the world. It's the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, because they're playing to a base. To be politically, they say historically the Senate is sort of the cooling off, where the House is the heating up. Because in the House there's 435 Congress people. In the Senate there's only 100. Now the Senate, the House, because they have districts, districts are smaller than states. So pick Florida, for example. You might have a hardcore liberal district in certain parts of Florida and Miami. So you just play to your base. You might have a hardcore Cuban, I hate communists, so you're going to play to your Republican base, let's say like that. Cool. Right. So districts will do that. Representatives will do that. Senators have states. So they need to be a little bit more diplomatic, a little bit more pragmatic. So you asked the question about finding common ground. If you're playing to extremes, you don't really have to find common ground. You're playing to your base. If you have a sort of a pragmatic view of whether it's your social content, whether it's your political content, whether it's your business, and you're like, look, I'm trying to go for the masses. I'm trying not to get this niche. Although the riches are in the niches, I get that. There's always common ground to be found unless someone's an absolute fundamentalist extremist.
Right.
So, I mean, not to get too geopolitically driven, but like if you see what's going on in the Middle East, like good luck negotiating with terrorists. They are so far gone in their belief that you're not going to negotiate with these people. That's literally the premise, that they are fundamentalists.
Right.
Whether it's Islamists, whether it's hardcore Christians, whether it's hardcore Jews, like you're not changing these people's minds. So as long as you're able to be swayed and you're not clinging to a certain belief and I'm right and you're wrong, there's always the ability to find common ground. Like one of the things I always say is that in business, you know what the Spanish word for business is?
No.
Negocios. So it's all a negotiation. So Ronald Reagan, we just interviewed Dennis Quaid, the famous actor that's been in a bunch of movies. He's now playing Reagan in a new movie. And there's a famous quote by Reagan. I hope I don't butcher it. It's basically like, someone you agree with 80% of the time is an ally, not your enemy. Find that, so the Republicans and Democrats, you might have to give a little bit. That 20% difference doesn't make you an enemy. You're an 80% ally. So that's kind of, even on someone like Nick Fuentes, maybe I agree with him 20%, cool. America first, great. I don't have a problem with that. But then there might be 80%, let's say I disagree with, but at least that 20%, all right, let's figure this thing out.
Yeah.
So even on, to use that Reagan example, Dennis Quaid, we just had, he portrays Reagan. He has to sit down with Gorbachev and figure out how to basically denuclearize the world and end the Cold War. And fundamental disagreements, but at the end of the day, he's like, so you love your family? Yeah, of course. You love your kids? You love your country? All right, cool. So at least we got that. And what's interesting, probably the scene that I remember this movie, Reagan, they're the hardcore. They're, the Russians, Soviets, and the Americans, they're in this conference room. They're arguing, you did this, niet, blah, 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 Mastrovia, bis. And Ronald Reagan goes, all right, let me teach you something that we did in Hollywood, right? And he walks to the door. Like imagine if I got up right now and walked to the door, opens the door, holds it open for a second. There's like a KGB agent like with a gun like standing outside the room so nobody can get in. Closes the door and goes, take two. And everyone goes, oh, and he walks back in. He extends his hand to Gorbachev. He goes, I'm Ronald Reagan. Nice to meet you. And Gorbachev stands up and he goes, Mikhail Gorbachev, nice to meet you. And the whole thing started over again. And it basically set the tone for everyone in the room. Wow. And long story short, it literally helped save the world from nuclear Armageddon and helped America win the Cold War.
Dang.
So, and it all started with take two. So, whether you're a Russian trying to end the world or whether you're American trying to save the world, there's always a take two.
Right. Yeah, there's always something that comes from these conversations. That's why I'm actually having Nick on. I don't think I could post it on YouTube. Did you post that one on YouTube?
It's we didn't put him on the thumbnail.
Oh, got it.
We said like Adam Saic interviews, special guest, what have you.
Got it.
Actually, I had Michael Sartain on that one as well.
Oh, I like Michael.
I don't know if you know, Michael's a beast.
Yeah.
We had this guy Nima. We had a Catalina Loff on that one as well. But yeah,
it's a shame, dude. I just had Sneeko on, and it went absolutely bananas. But I got a strike on TikTok for that one.
Why did it go bananas?
So he's the one who kind of exposed that whole Mr. Beast thing.
Yeah.
And that's just blowing up now. That one guy, I forget his name. That's a transgender.
Chris something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now with the Olympic transgender stuff, it's just everything's blown up.
What'd you learn from that Sneeko interview?
Have you had him on yet?
I have.
Okay. Dude, he's actually smart.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I went in that with some preconceived notions because it's easy to form opinions on people if you just see their shit online. But dude, he struck me as a pretty intelligent kid.
I'll tell you something about Sneeko because I've had him on, and to say that it didn't go well would be an understatement.
Oh, it went terrible?
But it didn't go terrible. At least I thought it didn't go terrible. I think he came in very reserved. And by the way, this was on the heels of PBD and I flying out to Madrid to interview Andrew Tate. It was the first Tate interview that we did on the PBD podcast because we've interviewed him twice. We Grateful had the opportunity to land the first 2 big interviews after he got canceled and after he got out of jail.
Yeah, those were massive.
With the Tates, yeah. I mean, millions,
so Sneeko was there when you went?
No. We came back, and I invited Sneeko on because he's been, in the red pill world.
Yeah.
We've done stuff with Fresh and Fit. We've done stuff with all this kind of stuff. So I came on, and I just want to have a conversation with the guy. Now, how old are you?
27.
You're 20, dude. You're young as hell. Sneeko's probably younger than you. How old
I think
is he?
he is. Yeah, he's young 20s. I think.
Okay, so maybe he's 25. So this was maybe a year or two ago. The kid's 23, and what happens is, look, he's sharp, he's smart, he's cunning, he's calculated. He knows what he's doing. He's been in front of a camera since he's 14.
Yeah.
Whatever the number is, 16, whatever the hell it is. But also when you're young, you're going to have some growth. You're not going to be the same person you are when you're 16, when you're 18, when you're 23, when you're 25,
yeah.
when you're 30, when you're 35. Like when I speak to Sean Kelly, when he's 30, when he's 35, you're going to be a different guy. You're going to be married. You're going to have kids. Like things are going to change. Perspective is going to change. It's inevitable. You want to change. You want to grow. You want to reinvent yourself. So we got into this conversation. I said some things, and I go, look, can't wait to speak to you in 5, 10 years. And your viewpoints are going to change. Respect to how you think now, but can't wait to see you in the future. I don't know if he was offended, what have you. And I ended up talking to PBD about it because the comments were like, Adam's this or whatever it was. And if you're going to get into the content game, just get ready for some mean comments.
I've seen some mean ones about you.
It's
I actually wondered if you read them or not because
it's funny. I'll tell you about that in a sec, but I tend not to read them, but occasionally I'll do. Now I'm leaning into it a little bit more, and I'll put them on my show and read them out loud, like that. How
you're embracing
Jimmy
it now.
Fallon, Jimmy Gill does like the mean tweets. But I ended up talking to Pat. He goes, "Look, man, what I saw in that interview and kind of what I'm seeing is you're not being yourself. Like you don't. Someone like one of the comments was like, who is this like budget Pierce Morgan? Like, I was like, all right." But I realized I was trying to stir up controversy, but genuinely, I talked about this. I'm a synergist. Like I'm not trying to be like I'm not trying to come on Sean's podcast, but you're a piece of Sean. Like I'm just like, what up, dude? How you doing? Like, and he said, listen, and it's famously in the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, rest in peace. That they're doing a new one with Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor, and he goes, just be nice. Be nice until you don't have to be nice. And I changed my perspective. I remember I called up Sneeko and I was like, look, man, just want to apologize. I should have been nicer. And he's like, yeah, man, it's cool, whatever.
So you kind of went on him a bit?
It wasn't even that bad is my point. I just wasn't nice. And genuinely, I try to be nice. And I realized that even on my role on PBD podcast is sort of like the dissenter. Like, I don't know about that, guys. And when the cameras are rolling, you think you got to be something. But just if you're yourself and you're authentic and you show, hey, man, up on this thing, whatever. Yeah. And I remember speaking with Andrew Schultz. He was on the podcast, and I kind of just did this like apology thing or whatever. He's like, dude, you're good. You're better for it now, all kind of thing. So what I've realized about life is that when life knocks you down and you do something stupid, you F up, there's 24, 48 hours to everyone out there where you're going to feel like genuinely. Okay, cool. I up big time, whether it's doing content, whether it's in business, whether it's in a relationship, I up.
Yeah.
But that's how you grow. Those are the moments where you're like, okay, let me learn from that. The thing that whether it's Sneeko, whether it's Tate, whether it's this girl, whatever, it's like, all right, this is what I did wrong. Do I want to do that again? No. Should I have done it better? Yes. The next time that I do this, what will I do different? I will do this. And that's how you just improve.
Right.
So one of the things we say at Valuetainment that I've learned from Pat, and I've learned so much from this guy, is outwork, out-improve, out-strategize, outlast. Life's a marathon. You're going to be, most people out there, you're 20, you're going to be 30. You're 30, you're going to be 40. You're 40, you're going to be 50. Mostly life expectancy is longer than ever these days. This is how I made my money in the longevity markets and life insurance and investments. And I know how long people live. How people say like, life is short, man, you got to do it. I go, no, life is long, but life is precious. If you screw it up, it could definitely be short.
Right.
If bad things happen, shit happens, risk assessment, life could be short. But if you take care of yourself, you take care of your body, your mind, your spirit, your emotions, like, You could live to 100. Like my grandma's 93. Like,
damn.
But everyone's grandma's 93. Like, it's not like it's like life expectancy has changed so much that what I've realized is the marathon is way bigger than the sprint. If you're the sprint guy and you want to just get views immediately, bro, like I'm just gonna go out there. Like I interviewed this guy Zerka.
Yeah.
You know who this guy is?
I know.
I think he's a hilarious guy, talented guy, smart guy. He's a sprinter. He, in my opinion, humbly is not playing the long game unless he wants to reinvent himself. So he's going out there, he's saying the shocking things, he's saying the N-word on camera, he's calling girls this, that, the other, he's fighting in public, and it's like, all right, let me know how that works out for you in the long term. Because whether it's athletes, whether it's OnlyFans girls, whether it's models, whether it's people that own clubs in Miami, it's like anyone can be hot for a year or 2 or 5 or 10. Can you be hot for 50 years? Can you play the long game? So I respect people that aren't necessarily in it for the immediate quick gratification, in for the quick buck, in for a quick view.
Yeah.
And if you're playing the long game, you're going to reinvent yourself. You're going to take some bumps and bruises. But if you have a vision, if you have a long-term vision, and you're playing the long game, in my opinion, good things are going to happen.
I love that. And these days, the internet forgets quick, too. Because there's this kid named Steiny from Nelk Boys.
Of course.
And everyone hated him.
We just had the Nelk Boys on Pat's house the other day.
Yeah. So everyone hated him at first. If you go on all the old podcasts, all the comments were and now he's like almost everyone's favorite character.
Why?
He just grew. He sucked at, I mean, he'll probably admit this, he sucked at podcast at first.
Okay.
Like, it's not a natural thing to be good at podcasting.
Yeah.
My first 100 episodes were cringe if I look back
Really?
at them. And he just sucked, and now he's gotten better.
Well, shout out to you, Steiny, because he knows PBD and he knows what's going on. And so sometimes your best ability is your availability. So I don't know his story. You know, I think he's a shorter guy, funny, quirky guy. I think he's Jewish. Like, shout out to you. I don't know. Steiny is probably short for like Steinberg. I don't know. Who knows? But your best ability is your availability. Meaning he was probably friends with Kyle and these guys who just around doing his thing.
He was Steve's assistant.
Bingo.
And Bob Menery's assistant before that. So he worked his way up.
Availability. Hey, I'm available. That's kind of how I started with Pat. I was like, yo, bro, what's up? What do you want to do? I'm available. Like I moved to Dallas during COVID. He's like, I don't even know what I'm going to pay you. I'm like, I don't need money. I got money. I'm good. I'm around. What's up? Moved out of Miami. I'm available. He's like, I really need help with like sponsorship. I'm like, I got you. I want to start this podcast. We haven't had the PBD podcast. I'm like, let's do it. Hey, I need help with building out our sales division. Got you. Done sales for 15 years. I was just available. And your best ability is your availability. So for this guy Steiny, he probably was just available. They're like, hey, you know, a spot opens up. Hey, we're going to put you on the podcast. And he probably just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And he probably had some nights where he felt like and he looked in the mirror, and my assumption is that he's a resilient guy.
100%.
And that he is like, you know, you could quit, you can listen to the comments, you can listen to the haters, or you can put on your, you know, your hater shades. You know, Steiny is probably like, all right, y'all, like, you too. And just, and reinvent himself and outwork, out-improve, out-strategize, outlast. And look at the guy now. And now you're saying he went from being hated on to beloved.
Beloved. They just gave him his own show, his own dating show.
Look at that.
16 of the hottest girls.
You know, what I'll tell you is this, what I've learned, doing content, being relevant, is the number one thing you can be is loved and beloved or even liked. The number two thing you can be is hated. And that guy, screw that guy. The third thing on the list is irrelevant. Hey, what do you think of Steiny? Never heard of him. Hey, what do you think of Sean Kelly? No clue. Hey, you know Adam Saic? Never heard of that guy. What do you think of Sean Kelly? Love that guy. What do you think of Adam Saic? Hate that guy. Jake Paul.
Jake Paul. I was thinking
Look at that guy, dude. How many people saw Jake Paul and were like, that guy?
Almost everyone.
Okay, but he had a loyal audience. Let's say there was, you know, 10 million people that were seeing him. Let's say there was 1 million that loved him. And there were 9 million that hated him. Here's what happens. He knocks out Nate Robinson. All right, cool. You know, maybe that, you know, now he's got 2 million people that love him, and instead of 8 million or 9 million, it goes down a little bit.
Yep.
And he starts knocking people out. Boom, 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 boom. And all of a sudden he reinvents himself. He becomes that dude. And now maybe it's 50-50. I don't know. Because when you're winning, people are going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to lie. I didn't like that Jake Paul guy. I was rooting for him to get knocked out. But look at him now. So now maybe of those 10 million people, I'm using an arbitrary number, there's 5 million that hate him.
Yeah.
But there's 5 million that love him or respect him.
The respect is there.
But
now.
at the beginning, everyone knew his name. And it didn't matter whether you liked him or hated him, you knew who he was. And look at him now. So the haters, they've had to put their foot in their mouth a little bit. And the guys that were ride or die with him were like, I told you, bro. What's up? There's nothing better than that. If you're an early adopter, whether it's Jake Paul, whether it's Apple, I told you. What's up? Trump, like all the Trump, I told you, bro, 2016. And that's what's going to happen. So if you're resilient, there's great things that'll happen to you. I'm a big alliteration guy. Like, and I like to break things down into threes. Like, hey, what are the 3 things you got to do? Hey, man, beginning, middle, end. That's how a story works. And what I've realized, Adam's like, all right, like I had to, because I was a money guy before, and then I got into finance, and I this and that, and nightlife. And if they're like, all right, Adam, like, give me something good, bro. Like, what's your secret to success? The whole thing. It's like, oh, whatever. And I was like, all right, I like the threes. I like this. Okay, here's what I've come up with. I call it the 3 R's, right? Everything in life, number 1 is relationships. Everything. Relationships, friendships, partnerships, all them ships are formulated by relationships. And no matter what you do, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's business partners, whether it's associates, whether it's content creators, whether it's your girl, your boyfriend, whatever it is, relationships are the foundation of everything. Number 2 is your reputation. Everyone has a reputation. Yeah. Whether it's a good reputation or a bad reputation, that's who you are. And there's 2 reputations. There's how people perceive you and how you perceive yourself. Now, are those 2 aligned? Are they different? Like if everyone's like, yo, I hate that guy, and you're like, I'm the man. It's like you're taking this completely out of context. Right. But if people are like, I actually like that guy, and he's like, well, I'm not that cool. All of a sudden, you have a different perception of your reputation. So reputation matters. Like if you do something in high school and in college, you screw someone over big time, dude, 20 years later, someone's gonna be like, hey, did you know that guy Rick or whatever? It's like, that guy's a scumbag. It's like 20 years ago, he sold somebody oregano rather than marijuana. I don't know. I'm looking for you, Rick. That reputation is gonna precede you. Like you can't ruin your reputation. You can reinvent yourself, like we talked about, and improve. It's really hard to get your reputation back once you've ruined it. Now we are forgiving, like you talked about. The internet is forgiving, but the internet is also forever. But reputation matters. And the last thing, the last R is revenue, money. Show me somebody that's worth a damn that hasn't had success, that hasn't made money, that hasn't delivered value. Show me someone. Like people are like, well, Gandhi. It's like, well, then go be Gandhi, bro. Mother Teresa. It's like, okay. But anyone who's worth a damn, whether it's Elon Musk, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Patrick Bet-David, whether it's Sean Kelly, whether it's Adam Saic, has made money and has helped people. What's the famous quote from Elon Musk? Like, you will be paid in proportion to
the difficulty of the problem.
To how many problems you solve, how many people you help. Yep. And so whether it's relationships, whether it's your reputation, at the end of the day, follow the money. You got to make some revenue happen to make your name in this world. Absolutely. So that's what I've realized, man.
Dude, that's a great ending right there. Where can people find out what you're up to next, man?
Reputation.com. No, I'm on Valuetainment. I'm on the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David. You can see me on all socials at Sauce Talks Money. And then my show on YouTube is the Saucecast on Valuetainment. But pretty much until he fires me, don't fire me, Pat. I'm just rolling with PBD. Happy to be the number 2 guy over there, whatever it is, however you want to look at it. It's important to roll, to know your number. Like, this is the last thing I'll say, is I realized I'm a great number 2. I'm great. I play my role. Anytime I'm the one, in sports, I was I was a pretty damn good basketball player. It was all county football, basketball. If I was the best player on the team, I had 6 stats, the team didn't do good. If I was the second best player on the team, I was the point guard or whatever, the team did great. With Chris Humphreys, what have you, when I walked, it was like, I'm not marrying Kim, I'll be a groomsman. When I was running the nightlife stuff here, when I tried to do my own thing as the number 1, didn't work out as much. When I was the number 2 to the big nightlife guy, killed it. And now with PBD, happy to be his number 2. He's a lead dog, he's a leader, he's a number 1. And I'm just gonna play my role, and that's
I love that. No, that's solid advice. A lot of people won't put their ego to the side, you know?
Yeah, and look, number 2 is it's funny, number 2, Steve Ballmer. You know who that is?
Heard of him.
Steve Ballmer owns the LA Clippers. Steve Ballmer he wasn't the founder, CEO of Microsoft. He was Bill Gates' number 2. But now he just surpassed Bill Gates in wealth.
Wow.
He's the top 10 wealthiest guy in the world because he never sold his Microsoft stock. So here's a guy that he wasn't the founder, he wasn't the guy, but he was there and he built this company up and he was the number 2. Look at him now. So not everyone has to be the CEO, the founder, the number 1. It's like, find a company, find something you believe in, find something you're good at, your skill set, and just find the dude.
Yep.
Find that person, but yo, I'm with you. So I found all my success in finance, in nightlife, in business, and in social, being the number 2 guy wherever I've gone. So number 2.
Number 2, guys.
It's all good.
I love it, man.
Don't be number 1. You ain't first, you're last. Thank you, bro.
Yes,
respect to you,
Thanks
Sean.
for watching, guys. Peace.